Peace and blessings. Welcome to my channel. My name is Taj Utsi, and I'm a certified financial coach. I am also the founder of True Financial Coaching, where our mission here is to educate, enlighten, and equip individuals with the financial literacy that is needed in order to get off of the rat wheel. What is the rat wheel? The rat wheel is when one is constantly financing things that go down in value for them, but up in value for the banks at the same time. The wheel is only powered as long as the rat is in motion. So when one is constantly financing depreciating objects, then they continue to keep that wheel in motion. It's not until when one wakes up and realizes that they are the rat that is powering the wheel, then they can create a plan and then implement that plan consistently in order to get off of the wheel. Once one gets off the wheel, then they become free to do what they want when they want instead of having to do the things that they don't want. In today's video, we're going to take a look at a CNBC brief video, about 12 minutes, about Henry. And Henry is not just one person, but Henry is a collective group of people, of individuals who are high earners, not rich yet. That's what Henry stands for. High earners, not rich yet. So, as I've said before in previous videos, doesn't matter your income, doesn't matter your profession, it doesn't matter uh, your nationality, right? If people are living paycheck to paycheck, most times it's because they have debt. And as I often say, debt is the colorblind slave master. So we're going to take a listen and take a look at some of the thoughts and ideas of some of these Henrys and see why it is they're living paycheck to paycheck. And as we're playing the video, I will pause it to chime in to give my thoughts about what was said. All right, stay tuned.
For many Americans, work can feel like a hamster wheel. No matter how hard they run, it never feels like enough. Americans, on average, say they would need $520,000 a year to feel rich. And the more people earn, the more they say they need to feel comfortable. Americans making under $50,000 felt they needed $157,000 a year to feel comfortable. Those making $100,000 or more said they would need $246,000.
All right, so let's take a look just right now, just at this. Looking at people earning under $50,000, right? They would need $157,000 to feel comfortable, and those earning over $100,000 said they would need $246,000 to feel comfortable. All right, that's all well and good, but as I often say, life is not expensive, right? You earning $50,000 a year with no debt, you good, right? Because now that gives you an opportunity to save, invest, and do what you want to do. So this is what they say: over $100,000. They say you need $246,000 to feel comfortable. Again, as they said, the more money you earn, they say you only need more. But again, when you don't have debt, you got a budget, you got an emergency fund, and you can invest. You don't need more. And as I said before, it doesn't take a lot to so-called feel comfortable, right? Just learn to live on less. Just learn to live on less. That's simple.
When I was in middle school, a song came out called Mo Money, Mo Problems. And I think that that's true. Your problems scale. You still are dealing with a finite number every month.
Yeah, I had to pause it on that one because, the lady said more money, more problems, that she thinks that's true. To me, that's just debt slave talk, right? That's what debt slaves say. Why more problems when you have more money? Why? Again, the reason why people say that is because when they get more money, they want to increase their lifestyle. They call it a lifestyle creep, right? More money you earn, to show off that you earning this more money, you take on a bigger car note, or more credit card debt. You want to get that credit line limit increase. So that's the reason why there's more problems when you got more money. But again, that's what debt slaves say. Debt slaves talk like that because when you have, like I said, when you have no debt, you don't really have too many financial problems. All right, but let's keep listening.
Your worries, your anxiety, your budget scales to that. You still are dealing with a ceiling.
About 14% of all U.S. households make $200,000 or more every year. But many of them, dubbed Henrys or high earners, not rich yet, still don't feel rich. 62% of people with salaries over $300,000 a year struggle with credit card debt.
And here we go. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been saying. The income does not matter, right? People making over 62% of people making over $300,000 a year have credit card debt. Why is that? You're earning $300,000 a year. If we do the math, right? 12 months and the 300,000, it's about, let me pull up my handy dandy calculator, do the math, right? 300,000 divided by 12, $25,000 a month. $25,000 a month. Why are you struggling with credit card debt? Why? Lifestyle increase, lifestyle creep. Like the lady just said, she just said, when you make more money, your budget increases to those things. It don't have to. It doesn't have to. And I understand what she's saying because, like I said, that was me. And I can only talk like this because I experienced, like I said before, I'm experiencing both sides now, though. I would get raises. What I think I do, get a bigger car payment, right? Whatever. But to be earning $300,000 a year, 62%, 6 out of 10 people making over that amount, credit card debt. That's why she said more money, more problems, because people lack the foundational knowledge of how to manage money. But let's keep going.
Earning doesn't actually make you feel rich, spending it does. If most people spent 99% of their paycheck, they'd feel quite rich. And it's the paradox here. When we're in accumulation mode, it's very difficult to feel rich.
It can be pretty easy for someone to feel like I'm making really good money, but I don't have a lot of discretionary income.
Earning more and feeling like you're still on a hamster wheel.
In case you don't know, discretionary income is, outside of your expenses, your necessities, utilities. That discretionary income is that extra money that you want to use for other things besides paying bills and your living expenses.
Is what a lot of Henrys experience. And that's because they're not living within their means. They may have been living above their means when they weren't nearly making as much money, and now they're just continuing to add more and more and more.
I earn $300,000 and I live in New York City. I definitely don't feel rich. I feel very lucky, I feel privileged, but I do not feel rich. I could not stop working right now. I have more money anxiety almost now than I ever did in my 20s. I am on a hamster wheel and there's no question about it.
Henrys often don't feel rich compared to others. Many Henrys are cash rich and asset poor. So they're typically people under 40. They don't have childcare hours available. They're first-time home buyers in the housing market. They're paying off student loans early, hopefully. And their income usually hasn't hit a career peak. So they're very much in that not rich yet bucket, but they very well could be in the future.
Oh, I 100% feel like a Henry.
Marian Contreras was a professional composer, band leader, and pianist who started her virtual assistant business in 2016.
That year, I started to grow slowly and I was suddenly earning more money than I had ever earned in my life. And I think the number was something like 35,000 by the end of the year. And I went, wow, this is really great. I can grow this.
She then expanded into a digital marketing consulting agency during the pandemic.
For the calendar year of 2025, we're just on track to make 1.4 million. We're hoping to get to 1.5 or possibly even 1.6. I'm anticipating my owner's draw to be anywhere between 300,000 and 400,000. Had a pretty successful career as a musician through most of my 20s. The thing they don't tell you about having a career as a musician in music school is that you can be playing Carnegie Hall, which I was, and I was making $15,000 a year. And I didn't realize how much freedom money affords you. Now that I see the kind of freedom that somebody who earns what I do or even more has, that's my goal. That is absolutely what gets me out of bed in the morning.
A lot of the high earners, not rich yet, they're first generation wealth. So they still take their wealth into perspective against their family members or others in their community, and they realize how well they're doing. So they don't take it for granted. But I think what makes them feel not rich is we were told once you make six figures, all your problems will go away. You'll just have so much excess.
All right, there go another debt slave myth. That once you six figures is the pinnacle. That six figures means you made it. That's just another debt slave myth, debt slave talk. Because like I said, this video is just proving that the income does not matter. Doesn't matter. This woman said that she was, earning like 15,000 a year, but look at what she was doing. She was doing something that she enjoyed. Playing the piano at, Carnegie Hall, whatever. If you live below your means, I'm not saying 15,000, right, is what you should be content with. You want to try to earn more. But again, if you live below your means, living off of $30,000 a year is nothing. Living off of $50,000 a year, you can do that easily, right? Because again, you're living below your means. You're staying out of debt, and like I said, you can become free to do what you want when you want. And like I often say, and I said it before last video, there's something inside of everybody that they would love to do. They do it for free. But what hinders individuals from doing that? Living above their means, regardless of your income. Regardless of your income. So income doesn't matter. Income does not matter.
And I think we know that narrative is not true anymore.
I would have thought back then that the amount of money that I have in the bank right now, I would be rich. I would have just thought, oh yeah, she's made it, and I don't feel that way. I know that I am on a hamster wheel with my business. I actually really love the hamster wheel. I love what I do, but I also realize that I can't stop.
Now, she says she loves what she does. I get it. One thing I notice with some people, not all, is that they intertwine business with personal. They intertwine the business with the personal. And the business and the personal, two separate. So when I talk, I just deal with straight personal finance, right? And I am against personal debt. Business debt is something different, right? And the reason why I say that is because with personal debt, you have to pay that back as the individual. But when you have business debt, your customers pay that back. Your customers pay that back. So business debt, okay, I really don't deal with that, but if you have to take upon business debt, that's what you got to do. But personal debt, you want to stay away from that. But the problem that I've seen, individuals that I've just talked to personally, they always intertwine in the two, and then that's where the mess comes in at. So if you have a business, you want to keep that separate from your personal. This is why some people get LLCs, but you definitely want to have your business separate from your personal.
So Henrys often don't feel rich compared to others. They work very hard for their money, but they also spend a lot more than the average person.
In a lot of ways, Henrys may be victims of their zip codes.
$100,000 in LA is definitely very different than $100,000 in Iowa. Someone makes $200,000 a year in LA. They're going to probably take home 140-ish. Rent for a one bedroom is going to be at least $3,000. Their car payment's going to be $700. Car insurance is going to be maybe $200 a month. Gas is going to be $200 a month. If you were to annualize that, that's $50,000 right there. The remainder is for all the other things. We haven't eaten yet. We haven't purchased groceries. We haven't paid for subscriptions to Amazon and Netflix. We haven't gone on vacation yet. We haven't purchased clothes yet. It can whittle away your discretionary income if you're living in an area that has a high cost of living.
When my business started to
So, and that's a good point. That's an excellent point. So there's something called geo arbitrage. And, that's basically what she was describing. Like having $100,000 in LA is different from having $100,000 in Iowa. And this is definitely something that individuals may want to take into consideration when moving, or if they want to take a job in a particular area. You want to definitely think about that, right? The cost of living in that particular area. But when you go to a city like she said, Los Angeles, that $100,000 is not going to take you as far as in a place, as she used an example, Iowa. But that's something that's called geo arbitrage. But as I often say, and I'm telling you, I'm stressing this because I know the importance of it, of not having debt. It doesn't matter where you live at. If you have an X amount of dollars, earning X amount of dollars, and you have no debt, you want to live in Los Angeles, all right, fine. Iowa, fine, wherever. But when you have debt, it's going to feel like everything's coming upon you, and it's going to feel like the cost of living is so high. You're going to be complaining about the gas and the cost of eggs and all that stuff. Again, that's a program. It's a program. But anyway, I'm going to hold my thoughts.
grow, one of the first things that I started spending more money on right away was food, because I don't have time to cook. I had more money than time, and so I started eating Grubhub 3 meals a day most days. After that, it became rent, because I hit $1 million a year in revenue, and I said,
I had to stop that, only because that she said something. You eating out 3 times a day on Grubhub, and now you're wondering why you on that hamster wheel. A lot of people that I've dealt with, I go through people's bank statements. 3 months. When I deal with individuals, I look at 3 months of bank statements, and I break it down to categories: housing, utilities, subscriptions, clothing, food. Outside of the housing, the food, and I'm not talking about grocery stores, right? But eating out. A lot of people spend a lot of money eating out, and people don't even realize this. They don't realize it because it's so convenient to just push enter on or return when you get to that, DoorDash or Grubhub, Uber Eats website. So easy to do it. So convenient. And those little $20 here, $25 there, $15 there don't feel like nothing at that moment. But when you look at it as a whole, and you just spent $500 to $800 a month just on eating out, That's what keeps that hamster wheel going. That's what keeps people living paycheck to paycheck. And this is the importance of a budget. And as I often say, a budget is not a restrictive thing, but a budget is just telling your money where to go and what to do. So if you are going to do want to eat out, then just allot yourself a certain amount of money. But when you just randomly look, I feel like eating out, boom. And this is a six-figure earner, six-figure earner. Feel like she's on that hamster wheel that she can't get it to stop. We're seeing why.
That's it, I'm moving to Manhattan. And so my rent doubled and I suddenly was paying $4,000 in rent. What is very worth it to me is to live where I want to live. I was proud that I could live here. For about a year, I would walk outside my apartment and just like look around and just be like, oh my gosh, here I am. So that was lifestyle.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, some people looking at, all right, she's making paying $4,000 in rent. If she chooses to live, like she wants to live there and she has that income to pay that amount, fine. But here's a rule of thumb that I always give people: your rent slash mortgage shouldn't be more than 25% of your take home pay. Whatever your net is, your take home pay is. Try to keep your rent or your mortgage like 25% of that amount. So if your monthly take home is $4,000, then you want to don't spend more than 25% of that. If I do my math, that's about $900 if I'm correct, right? 10% is 4, 20% is 8, another half, $1,000, right? $1,000. So some people say, well, I can't get nowhere for 25% of my take home. There's places you can do, things you can do to do that, but when your rent or your mortgage is half of your monthly take home, then you're gonna wonder why you living paycheck to paycheck. And I know individuals personally, they they have one paycheck is dedicated to their mortgage. That's half of your take home pay. Half of your take home pay. And then you wonder, and these are people, like I said, people I worked with that were teachers, giving a whole paycheck to a mortgage. That's insane. That's insane. But that's the American way.
Creep for me.
Lifestyle creep is the common phenomenon of spending a little more money as you earn more. It can happen to anyone at any income.
Lifestyle creep can really sneak up on you. You start earning more and then you decide, well, I can buy more things. I need a second car. I need a bigger home. I need to go on this European vacation. I deserve this European vacation because I work hard for my money. The problem is if you're not continuing to increase your savings at the same time, you are putting your financial future.
That's another debt slave saying, I work hard for this money. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to show the world that I made it. They say fake it till you make it. Hey, man, that's what a lot of people are doing. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself, enjoying your income that you worked hard for. Nothing wrong with that. But if I'm spending, and I'm not paying myself, then I'm going to always stay on that wheel. And what some people don't realize is that when you paying off debt, you are paying yourself. You are paying yourself. Because now, once I eliminated that debt, I done gave myself a tax-free increase. If was spent, let's just say I had a credit card I was paying $100 a month on. Once I pay that off, now I done gave myself $100 a month tax-free raise. So by paying off your debt, you are investing in yourself. And this is why I say true financial coaching, my slogan is to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Before you can invest in something outside of yourself, we must first invest in ourselves. And one way we do that is by paying off the debt. That's how you pay yourself. You pay yourself by paying off your debt. Because like I said, once you knock that out, you done gave yourself a tax-free raise. Keep going.
In jeopardy.
That shift happens everywhere in our lives, from the small purchases to the really big ones. Cars, houses, vacation, and most of these expenses are fixed.
Lifestyle creep impacts almost all tax brackets, but it can take different forms. One 2024 study found that when low and middle income households were given an additional $1,000, no strings attached, every month, their spending increased primarily on basic necessities, such as food, transportation, and rent. However, when higher income households were given the same $1,000, they increased spending on both necessities as well as discretionary expenses, like Marie did.
I spend more on my hair. I spend more on makeup. I get my lashes done. I get my nails done. I think it's just something that comes with the territory.
Birds of a feather tend to flock together, and their spending tends to be more aligned. If you make about $85,000, your friends probably also make about $85,000. So you're doing similar activities in the same economic bracket. Once you have friends that are making $200,000-$300,000 a year, your activities will change. The restaurants that you will eat at will differ and change. They're going to probably be a little bit more elevated. Your vacations are going to be more elevated.
That's a good point she made. Birds of a feather flock together. People you hang around or whatever, the places you go to is going to change based upon the people you hang around. If you're earning more, right? But again, it's nothing wrong with doing those type of things. But if you haven't invested in yourself, if you haven't have an emergency fund, have putting money aside for retirement, then you got to say no to those things or do it very limited. Like I said, some people go out every day, every weekend, right? And if you can afford to do that, fine, but make sure I'm taken care of, meaning my debt is taken care of, right? Or I have a budget. And if I have a budget, I might put aside for that. And one thing that people don't know how to say is no. They don't know how to say no. If you don't have it, just say no, I don't have it. You don't have to try to live up to somebody else's standard or, as they say, keep up with the Joneses. In this case, keep up with Henry. You don't have to do that. If you don't have it, you just say no. Instead of faking it like you have it, go out, spend, and then you're like, man. But all right, I mean, let's let it roll.
Clothing is going to be more elevated. It's not necessarily spending irresponsibly, but they're spending aligned with their friend group and their community. That's why a lot of them oftentimes don't feel rich, because they're spending along with their friends.
Emotions are tied so tightly to what we do with our money. It happens to everyone. You get a raise, you're feeling great, you deserve to go out to dinner. In fact, you deserve to book that cruise. But the reality is that money was supposed to be earmarked for a bump up in your retirement savings, or money that you were going to put toward your child's education, or maybe you don't have an emergency fund, or at least not an adequate one, and the money should have gone there. When we allow...
This is what I've been saying, right? Now, one thing she did say I thought was very good. Emotions, right? You get caught up in the emotional aspect of it. And as I say, like I said, I was a math teacher for 25 years. And I will always kind of say math doesn't care about your emotions, right? It doesn't care about emotions. Meaning, like, if I was to say, how does 4 minus 2 make you feel? How does that make you feel? 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2 equals 2. How does that make you feel? You can look at me like I'm crazy, right? Because it's just a math problem. I don't have any feelings. It's just fact. 4 minus 2 is 2. So all money is math. That's all it is. When you're working with money, that's all it is math. It's just got a dollar sign or a euro sign, right? Or a pound sign in front of it. But why don't we have that same mindset when it comes to our finances that we do with just regular arithmetic? The same way 4 minus 2 equals 2, right? I don't feel no type of way. But when it comes to money, oh, well, I feel like since I got this raise, I can do. No, no. You can't, if you can't afford it, how do I know I can't afford it? Easy. Put in your savings minus your debt. Savings minus debt. If that number is a negative number, you can't afford it. You can't afford it. So when I want to go out to eat, enter my savings minus my debt. That shows me if I can afford to go out to eat. I can't do it. So, but the emotions become involved, right? The emotions become involved. And because we see others doing things and we want to show off that I got this raise or I want to keep up with the Joneses, then I got to do it. I feel as though I got to do it. No. And this is what, again, keeps people on that rat wheel, regardless of your income.
Ourselves to let our emotions overtake what we're doing with our money. We lose sight sometimes of what our goals are and how we have planned to meet them.
A Henry will sometimes look to the mega millionaires or the billionaires and wish that they had more, but it's really just that upwards comparison for more that keeps them stuck. More will never be enough at a certain point, and you have to decide what you have is ultimately enough and start appreciating all that you do have instead of fixating on all that you don't.
Experts say the best way for Henrys to start to feel rich and to get off the hamster wheel is by budgeting and planning for the future.
You can't really figure out if you're rich yet unless you know where you stand right now and where you want to go. You need to know your net worth. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not just for rich people. You have a net worth. What you own minus what you owe is your.
So that's what I said. Savings minus debt, right? Own what you own minus what you owe. That's your net worth. But key point she made again was the budget. And it's funny how, that she said people with high incomes, they look to the multi-million-dollar companies or individuals, right? But when you look at these companies, they have a budget also. They have a budget, right? These businesses have a budget. Microsoft, you don't think they have a budget? Apple, you don't think they have a budget? Tesla, you don't think they have a budget? Amazon, these companies have budgets, right? These businesses have budgets. People always talking about, oh, the rich do this, the rich do that. Okay, but the rich, they budget too, right? These businesses budget. But what about the business of you? The business of you. Does your business have a budget? The business of you. Budgeting is the foundation. And I'm telling you from experience, because I worked 25 years. I probably didn't start budgeting till like year 18 or 19 of me teaching. But once I began that budget, it was like I gave myself a raise because now I saw where my money was going. I was giving my money direction instead of aimlessly shooting, hoping I hit. Nah, I can give a budget, boom, boom, target. And it was like I gave myself a raise. And I'm telling you, I deal with people. We sit down, we budget. And a lot of them always say like, hold up, wait a minute. Did we forget something? Nope. You got this amount of money left over. Why was it you had the same income? So why is it now that you think as though you feel as though you missed something? But when before it was like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, because now you know where your money's going. And this is why I say look at your bank statements, categorize, create a budget, and then you'll be on your way.
Net worth. Everyone has one. Yours may be negative at this point, but you have to figure how to turn that around. Once you know your net worth, then you can start to build on what are your goals? What do I want to have in terms of my retirement savings, in terms of savings for college if you have children, in terms of emergency savings in case anything happens, how secure will I be? Once you have significant emergency savings, enough to cover, say, 6 months of your expenses or more, you're going to start to feel rich. Surveys have shown that financial well-being is tied closely to emergency saving. And so if you know that you're not going to have to whip out a credit card, that you're going to be able to pay for the roof that needs to be fixed or the car that breaks down, you're going to feel rich.
I think wealth is often an emotional feeling. It's a mindset to feel truly secure and not to have to worry about finances at all. Feeling rich, it can feel much more about the bottom line and the dollar amount. So one is more about the tangible number in your bank account, and the other more is a feeling. Most people aspire to reach a level of wealth where they don't have to stress or worry about their finances or even about the future generations, to know that there's a cushion there.
One of the things I focus on with my clients is a budget should be a representation of your values. The issue is you can't value everything. You have to prioritize it. And when people see the hard numbers of what they're spending on a monthly or annualized basis, and they see, oh my gosh, I'm spending $5,000 a year eating out, I will ask the question, are you enjoying those meals at $5,000? Is it bringing you that much excitement and that much joy? And most people will say, no, Camila, it's not. The food is okay. I'm doing it to be social. Well, we'll talk about other ways that you can be social without spending $5,000 a year eating out. You can't buy clothes consistently, travel consistently, eat out consistently. You have to pick maybe one or two things where you're going to focus your discretionary spending and then take that extra and reroute that to savings so you can start feeling rich.
Spending gives this immediate dopamine fix, and seeing wealth in an account with numbers and commas often can be far more satisfying, though we don't realize it in the moment. It's almost like the difference between an exciting, yet very toxic relationship versus a secure and stable long-term partner. I think the feeling of safety and the feeling that you can weather this long-term financial storm is far more satisfying, and we have to train ourselves to value that safety over the quick fix of a fancy car or a shiny new watch.
My advice for somebody who's on the hamster wheel is,
And that's a good point. That quick fix. And that's what a lot of people are chasing, that quick fix. They said that dopamine hit when you buy that new car or finance that new car or finance that new cell phone. And then after about a couple of weeks, that feeling, but the debt. See, and this is what I say about math and feelings, man. The math and your feelings, money and your feelings don't mix. They don't mix.
understanding the trade-off. I could get off the hamster wheel at any time, and I know that. And I know that my circumstances may change. For right now, this is the answer for me. My advice to somebody who is feeling that anxiety is understand that this is a choice. There are trade-offs. What I have learned is that I have been very burnt out and exhausted as a person who doesn't earn a lot of money. And I have been burned out and exhausted as a person who does earn a lot of money. And I would take being a person who's burned out and exhausted and has money any day of the week. I would rather do that than be burned out and tired and also worrying about my bills.
All right, that's it for that. But I'm going to close out with this. That's what I mean about what she said at the end about how she'd rather be burnt out and exhausted, don't have to worry about money. Like what how can you enjoy that? That's the work-life balance I'm talking about. Why would I want to be burnt out and exhausted from a job? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get it. Okay, you want to excel your business and your financial goals and things of that nature. But to say I'd rather be burnt out and exhausted, I don't want to be burnt out and exhausted over a job or even over a business. No, that's what I mean about that balance. And that's what many people lack. They lack balance. They lack balance. Yeah, you want to, do for your business and do for yourself, whether you got to work a couple of jobs. But there come a time where I got to say, look, let me take care of myself. And this is what happens with individuals that don't have that balance. But this video right here, I thought it was, it's worth sharing to show what I've been saying, in past videos about the income. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your income, 6-figure earner or minimum wage. If one is constantly financing depreciating objects, they're going to keep that wheel going. If one doesn't have a budget, they're going to keep that wheel going. If one doesn't have savings, that wheel is going to keep going. It's going to keep going. So, like I said, before you can invest in something outside of yourself, one must first invest in yourself. And that's what I do. I help people invest in themselves, help you take back, own the time of your life so you can be free to do what you want, when you want, instead of having to do the things that you don't want. So if you are ready to get off this, they call it hamster wheel. I like to say rat wheel because it, hamster, a little cute, little cutie hamster. One of the sisters from Ireland was saying, you should use hamster wheel. I know I'm using rat wheel because it hits harder, right? I was a rat on the wheel, right? Hamster wheel, you might, little cute. But if you're ready to get off the rat wheel and you're ready to be free to do what you want when you want, I can help you out. I can help you. You got to put in the work. I can help you, create the plan and guide you, but you got to do the work. You got to do the work.